welcome to the Intralingo World Lit podcast. I'm Lisa Carter, your host, founder, and creative director of Intralingo. In today's episode, I speak with Shugri Said Salh about her memoir, The Last Nomad, Coming of Age in the Somali Desert. Shugri comes from a long line of oral poets and storytellers. In her book, she describes her cultural tradition of storytelling as nomadic, like clouds, scuttling and changing shape. Well, that's the flavor of this conversation too. To listen to Shugri is to be transported. I hope you will enjoy our conversation. I love this. So today I am in conversation with Shugri Said Salh about her memoir, The Last Nomad, Coming of Age in the Somali Desert. And I'm so very happy to be speaking with you today, Shugri.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, like I said, you're from Ottawa, and I'm so grateful that someone from my hometown is interviewing me. Thank you so much, Lisa. I am very excited for us to be this sort of, I have my tea. I don't know about you.
Perfect. I have my water.
All right. So we're good. And it's caffeine
good.
free because not getting hyper here.
And there you go.
Yeah. And it really just, we're not gathering by a fire, but we are gathering by a computer. And I can see your lovely face. And that's enough for me. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? I really think in this time where we've had to be apart, it's amazing how close we can feel to one another through a screen when we come to it with that open heart and willingness.
Really. And we can I feel like sometimes I find myself leaning into people just the way I am right now, leaning to. We are very adaptable. I could be so different from somebody's idea. I hope they listen, right, Lisa?
Exactly. Oh, that's but that's really the essence of your book as well. And I'm just going to read this one line because it's in the prologue, and this is what made me feel an immediate connection to you and so excited for the rest of your story. Was you said stories have always created understanding and connection between humans. In this era of great misunderstanding, I wish to help rein us back into our shared humanity. And I feel like that's what this time is doing. That's what your book is doing.
Yeah.
And it's so important.
Oh my God, Lisa, it is so important. Imagine, I often find very connected to someone who's a refugee or fleeing home. My patients know how to be connected. If they tell you their story, someone who's sick and suffering, that made them more compassionate, right?
Yes.
So right now, Lisa, as the war is happening in Afghanistan and things are happening, I find myself being triggered. I find myself reliving in the past. I find myself, my longing to see my home and have closure with it, so definitely. And I know, Lisa, when I tell you, so many people finally, I can see when they approach me, their heart open. Here is this woman who went through all of this, yet she's living among us. And I don't see her wailing, and I don't see her succumbing to her own belly. It doesn't mean I don't carry psychological things, but I am also deeply and deeply grateful. This is the reason I almost cry when you say you're from Ottawa, because all that, Lisa, lives within me. Everyone who Canada took me home. And it may be something that people take for granted. Even now I'm fighting these tears because that is, Canada is like a mother. It blanketed us to, like, you are okay, Shugri, I got you. You can now let go of your trouble, Canadian, say to me, I'm carrying with you. And because of the love Canadian showed me, and that taking this bewildering refugee girl who did not speak English, they set the tone who I will become as the rest of my adult life, right?
Yes.
When I was a teenager, what I expected from the world, right? If Canada had ruined me and put me into jail or put me in horrible or discriminate me terribly, I don't know if I would have been who I am. Now, that is aside from, as you know, my amazing nomadic grandmother who shaped this woman I am today. And, but I think sort of my sisters, a lot of amazing women, a village of women has made me who I am today.
Isn't that incredible? Your whole memoir, which takes us from your childhood in Somalia all the way to after you arrive in Canada as a refugee through the war, it's such a common story in that there are still, exactly as you said, people fleeing their homes, forced into being refugees everywhere today, even
Lisa, right now, climate change, drought. Someone was, what do I talk about in the desert? Rain, drought, all of this water, right? Here in California, we are talking about conserving water, being mindful. I mean, my lawn is drying out because I'm like, okay, perhaps we can put some rocks, right? But I often tell people, when you are here, we are conserving, but we're still getting a water from the faucet. We still have taken a shower less, but still living life very normal. In the desert, what's happening, the climate change is extreme. Everything is more extreme where the water is in scarcity, right? So I often remind people, please have compassion. And I'm telling you, you can, through me, everything lives in me, right? This desert life, Lisa, lives in me. When I say I'm a portal between two worlds, or carrying someone, all of these stories, it is me, Lisa. This Canadianness lives in me, this Somaliness lives in me, and now this American, and then specifically this Californian, like I live in among the hippies. I am a melting pot of what it's like to be the ultimate immigrant who, what do you call, someone who took everything in and just produced this different kind of flower, but still the same person, and I have so much gratitude and just melting of the heart for all of these people who, countries that took me in, influencing me, make me, it was quite a journey, Lisa. And when I look at that young girl who was just run out of her home like a bird whose nest was burned down, did not have time even to look back, as maybe my wings are, they flap it around in distress, I couldn't look back. And for the longest, I would have this nightmare where I am hovering over Mogadishu, crying, and that I can't help the hopelessness that radiated in my body was very visceral, right? Is the word, right? I am watching my Somalia below me, bellowing with pain and crying, and my people, young, old, and babies strapped in their mother's bag, elderly, just saying, what is going on? Where am I going? So this is the story I want to bring you in a bended knee and say, hey, hear my story. Perhaps you would have a compassion. I am human. I am of you. Please, don't shut me off. My best friend was telling me a story. He told me a story of a flower that bloomed in a desert. It's a poem that's Arabic, but it says, in Arabic, it says, even this flower that is surrounded by drought and harshness refused to succumb to it, and it come out and bloomed with such a beauty. And I don't know why, such a poetic, coming from a long line of nations of poets and proverbs and oral traditions, it just resonated to me that it is that if you can be that flower that shine through out of the destruction, that flower chose to bloom with its beautiful fluorescent colors, and I go, oh, that is life.
Shugri, take us back to the desert. Take me into that desert where you grew up as a nomad with your grandmother. You paint such a beautiful picture of it, but it's also very realistic. Exactly as you said, the
Mhm.
drought, sometimes you would have to walk, for
Long,
hours, for
long
certainly,
time.
and days to find water. And
Oh,
tell us both
you
sides.
are so right, Lisa. And if I forget something, you can remind me. Sometimes I can get started and I can forget and things.
It's
Don't know whether
perfect.
it's premenopausal or other issues. Like, what the heck? Or COVID thing. Well, I don't know what to blame. I probably need to hike more. I've been hiking with nature, which has been lovely. Yeah,
Mm,
my ancestors or the people that I came from, I said I come from a long line of nomads, and they were in a ceaseless end for grazing land and water, right? This is the people who have seen the best of the desert birthing its green lush, and the desert drying and showing into its skeleton self, right? The desert to show them. So these are the people who said I bellow, as I talked about in the book. The old man bellow into the desert, voicing his agony, for he knew, I'm not quoting myself, but for he knew this land took all he owned. He's watching his precious camel succumb to the desert. And when a camel, the most drought resistance animal, by the way, who goes on without a water for months, many don't know that, right? It is succumbing to the desert. Can you imagine the people, right? And so as a young girl, I seen both the beauty and the harshness or the desperation of the desert. But like a somebody, I always lean into the beauty of it, right? And I remember like looking after my goats, climbing Termite Mount, calling my goats when they wander off, Kaloi, Kaloi, which means come here, just like my grandmother did it. And just watchfully, vigilantly for like I say, foxes, something called red one, which is gududane, the bob-like cat or crackles, I think. Or also, you gotta watch for hyenas and the lions and how brave. I have no fear of those things, Lisa, because I watched my own grandmother, uh, you know, rule this desert with such authority. This is a woman who, like I say, tamed camel, was a camel herder, a job or a work that was usually an only man's job. And that meant she was away as a camel herder for weeks at times, because there you will encounter lions and hyenas, and I often couldn't help. Even now I'm like, how do you survive? So that is the world that I come from. My apology. I I come from a world where I was bitten by a scorpion, you know, by snake, everything, and chased by, like, the scene of the book, the first chapter after the prologue talks about being chased by a warhawk, and they are fishes. So I lived with that, but I still see that young girl standing on the top of the termite mount, right, looking out in the distance. And these termite mounts are red, by the way, and I'm standing at the peak of it, and I'm looking into the distance. It almost like conquering my own desert, like my grandmother, and seeing what lays ahead of me, and thinking where the mirage or far away into the horizon, oh, that is where the desert meets the the land, the desert and the earth meet. And as a child, really, in the book, I told you when I was confused, I told it because I want you to kind of identify this confused child. And it was unlike any other writing, because a lot of people, when they were writing, if that was the case for them, they kind of put that adult self. I want you to know, when I thought the red one was he a beast, or, blood second thing, all my confusion, I took you in. And, when I'm looking at the woman, I mistaken her for the Gududane or the red one. I'm like, hello, anybody, are you going to do something? Now I saved the desert, Truly, I thought I did something amazing. And it was childlike imagination, Lisa. In fact, as I write now for children, I find myself like unleashing this childlike mind that really always wanted to write. And I'm happy to say I'm working on a picture book and a middle grade that's almost done. And actually also, Lisa, The Last Nomad is going to give birth to young readers version.
How exciting. That is fantastic. Yes. Oh, that is so great. I can see that just being wonderful. And, you said it already as well, but you come from a culture and a line that are storytellers.
And so I forgot even to
here
mention
you are.
That sorry to interrupt, that by the time when I come back to home at night, that is what we sat by the fire, heard stories that existed, that was handed down from many generations. Now we're talking about thousands and years ago, yes. And here I am sitting by the fire, and a story that is thousands and years ago is here landing, and it's being told by my grandmother or uncles, and these people who just knew how to survive this desert. Yeah, sorry I cut you off. My apology.
No, that I was just going to say that's perfect though, and so here you are sharing the stories, with people who have never heard them before, with people who have no experience. And you say in the title that you're the last nomad of your line, of course. And nomads do continue, but you are continuing the tradition in a different place and in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. I think my children, one of our favorite times still is when, we can gather and just we try to be mindful how to use electronics, right? I kind of feel like I don't want to lose. So I now give education, if someone is sitting with you, I think the best respect you can give is put that device down. I am here with you. Therefore, I should get precedence over someone who's not there, honey. So they are all kind of like mindful of being present and sharing our stories. And my son told me, Mom, he's a small guy. So I often, I don't know how he felt about it, but I had something called with him a double-digit talk when he turned 10. And I told him all his ancestors. And I told him, especially the special story of my grandfather. My grandmother was 6 feet, but my grandfather was actually a small guy. They said small, light-skinned guy. And so I told him he was a warrior. He was a man who was a respected clan leader and all. And he was just small like you. And then I have forgotten that I told him all of this years later, when another mother was complaining to me that she's very she's very worried her son is small and he's getting angry. I said, I think Sammy is okay. I think my son is doing okay. And then somebody else had told her, maybe Sammy, I don't think Sam's okay. So I said, you know what? I'm one of those, let's go to the stores. I said, Hoya, how are you doing? What helped you overcome your little smallness and gain the confidence? Because to be honest, he's a healthy alpha male, right? Like someone who other males gravitate, and he's this cool kid now who's everybody's like, Sammy's, he's like hurting people around. And I realized what helped him. I think what he said is, Hoya, that story helped him. It helped me, telling me who I come from and all of that, seeing that I am not just small for no reason, that it is genetically hardwired in me to be. And I figured that also all of this amazingness must be hardwired in me as well. So I'm like, good job, Mama. And he is very confident young man today. Now, I'm not saying, I'm sure maybe there are times everybody, right? Self-esteem is something that is evolving. There are days we feel, oh, my gosh, what am I writing? I'm not having a good day. But that is a human nature, and we need to be kind with each other. Like, I mean, even the people who thinks they attained all their problem have problem. Let me tell you, we all go to the bathroom and shit.
Exactly.
So that is as real as it gets. In my
Is.
case, as a child, it was in the desert. Telling the young people, don't take my feces. But for others, just because it's flushed out, it's just that reminds us the humanness of it. We all pee. We all, I'm sorry, the nurse side of me is coming out.
That's great.
but then Lisa, that is me, because in the book, as you were reading, you can see that side of me. Humor is another way that help me survive. That still helps me survive.
I loved that aspect of the book as well, because, one, it's truly your voice. And now I can see that. I love that. But also, memoir can be, it can be difficult. It can be emotional. You are revealing very deep truths about yourself. And that levity is part of it as well, because life is not all dark or all bright, exactly as you just said.
Yeah, it is so true, because Lisa, it was so interesting, because people were asking me, oh my God, Shugri, was it this book? First of all, it has so many things right in it. Living in this book is so many amazing stories. Obviously, along with female circumcision and maybe an orphanage, lived in my first love and heartbreak and life of Mogadishu. Like, I'm actually gonna have my daughter and I were hiking the other day, and we were, as we do, no phone, just two women hiking. Because had I had my phone, I'd go, oh, I gotta make sure that appointment, somebody's calling me about the next interview. And we both left it, and we said, let's be among nature, so we could hear the birds. And I was hiking, I was realizing all the thing. She was like, Mom, I didn't know Somalia. You were talking about this youngsters in your high school who had vacation in London, in Europe, and going different countries, Italy, Germany. Yeah, I said, they were the ultra rich and ultra poor, right? And we all lived together. And she goes like, I felt like even the life of Mogadishu, the broken teenager listening to music in here. Maybe in your time, Lisa, you listen Whitney Houston, I think. And in my time, perhaps I listen Umar Dule, and he helped me remedy my broken heart, and, whatever it is, right? So it is so relatable. Here's my young daughter relating. So, like I said, it is so much in this story that there is obviously the female circumcision and the beautiful of, just beautiful desert life, beautiful all that. So I really wanna people to just be taken to a world that is quite different from them. And a lot of people have sending me, of my friends and random people who were like, oh my God, my friends would say, oh my gosh, I knew you were writing a book, but honestly, I did not know that you were writing a story that I couldn't put it down, is what I hear. And I am still saying, really, like, they're like, Shukri, this is you have opened my mind and heart so well that now I feel like, I don't know, they feel one with everything. Like, oh my God, I understand you. And that is exactly why I did things the way it is, the way I excavate this for you, why I show you who I am. And why, even when I was writing about things like female circumcision, why you don't feel like I'm writing such a bad, such a really hard aching, because I told it as a story. Hey, I say, I am not mad at women who did to me. I'm not mad at people who hold me. And you may be even surprised to learn that the hardest chapter to write about was not even the female circumcision. It was the orphanage, and shows about the human emotions, right? I felt vulnerable and lonely, and a child who no one wanted it, when I was put into that place. And then again, I talked about, even though in the orphanage I cried that chapter. It's a chapter that reminded me the man who become almost like a father figure, Nicholas, who I talked about in the story. Like the place I lived, I was raised by Canadian. And don't know what it is, Lisa? This is a beautiful thing that I'm about to tell you. Do you know in that orphanage? So, and Canadian, maybe perhaps that's why whenever the word Canadian brings me to tears, because the woman who took me in as that 9-year-old who come from the desert and a refugee was a Canadian woman named Sandra. And even when I was writing this book, I sang to evoke a memory from that time. So we used to say, Kimna hoya weye Canada hawarto ana eta weye Englantu hawarto. So what I'm saying is a Kim who come from Canada is a mother. So may Canada be blessed and live long. And Anne, who also took us in, who helped, but it was owned by Canadian, right? But Anne also was another prominent lady who helped, was from England. So we say Anne Edeweye England, and Anne is an aunt.
Okay.
Aunt meaning my aunt, kinship to my father usually. And so may the England be blessed and forever live, right? So look at me, so young, after I get over with all the pain that I was dealing with it. That is, I am like, I don't know, I'm okay. But right now, Lisa, I'm so tickled because I'm having an aha moment, right? And really, I am king. Like, I'm remembering the woman who raised me. And no wonder I'm so connected. Isn't it fitting and that, Lisa, that the person that took me in as that young girl is the country that took care of me, is Canada. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get, I really tried to fight it off this the whole time. And now it just occurred to me that it was owned, that Family for Children, which become a different company now. People can research. We used to call it FFC. It was Canada. So no wonder that I have this visceral little, when I call a core that connected me, this is this anchorness I'm talking about. Like Canada took care of me even as a child. And now I am gonna look so messy.
No, you're perfect.
It's gonna come out because I am so. And Lisa, I never put together until I am talking to you. Like,
Isn't that amazing? It's, it's incredible to me. There's so much there that, when you say that, you were writing about the female circumcision and that wasn't even the hardest part. To me, what I also hear is that wasn't the hardest part because that was a connection to your culture. It was a connection to the way you lived as a young child, to your grandmother. And the orphanage was much more difficult because it was a break from that. And it was the start really of your new culture.
It is. And I often say, a child who went through cancer, who's been supported and can go through really well, but the child who did not feel the support and suffer, and perhaps the parents were picketing or whatever the child was going, may not remember it with a good feeling. For me, that orphanage, being thrown into and living all that culture and seeing a white people for the first time and just feeling, imagine someone who's so different from me and saying, what is going on? I'm lost. And I think that the reason I find is there's a scene, I keep trying to run away home. There's this foreboding feeling written in that scene that I'm trying to go home, perhaps go home to that place where there's a fire by the desert. I'm seeking that desert sky that want to shine above me in such a black night that called me. I felt that it was calling me and I couldn't go home. And the guards chased me like a stray dog go back. And I kept going. And the words I will utter as a young child, even in Somalis, when I said, "One si Araba ya iga so Araba," I should journey now out of here. Then to my sibling in the orphanage, "You too should journey about after me." It's such a nomadic, big word, you know, for a child to even utter that type of words. It's just it's altogether really beautiful world. And the fact that I'm even here, Lisa, writing, telling you my story, it has come a full circle. Telling you my story as a Canadian, it has come a full circle for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You know, I think you've given us an incredible gift as well, just by in that realization and in that sharing, because one of the things that I hear as you talk about that experience of being cared for by Canadians and then being able to find a home in Canada when you were forced to flee. It's something for me as a Canadian to remember what it means for us who are privileged enough to be here to welcome people who have had to come here. Sometimes they choose to, of course, but many times are forced to as refugees. And what a difference that can make in another person's life. Simply to welcome them.
You are so right, Lisa. People who have had to deal with all kind of atrocities of war, rape, everything, right? Famine, displacement, lack of security. I'm thinking all of the things Canada gave me that time and meant for me. And so it's funny, there was one thing I remember. I could have gone to high school, regular high school in Canada. I was young enough. I believe we don't celebrate ages, but by the time I came to Canada, I believe I was 18. And I didn't finish high school in Somalia. So I was still at the of an age where I could still go to high school. But one of the things that as a newcomer, I felt like that's one thing, if I can tell Canadian, is to when you see someone immigrant new, please be curious about them and offer them help. There are things you took for granted, but we, bewildered refugees, we can use some holding of hands and someone patient enough to take. And even if you have to volunteer, even if you help them fill up paper, even if you do simple thing, because what happened to me is I felt like I have landed in a new, it's like being a Canadian being dropped into Mars and dealing with this and telling, okay, my Canadian fellow, survive now. Or me dropping you even in Somalia.
In Somalia,
exactly. You and in us and out and saying survive. That is how it felt to me. And I remember, Lisa, being lost, being like, just didn't know how to ask for help. Because again, I am a teenager and my ego was getting the better of me. Of course, I didn't even want to get, when I was talking about the escalator, taking the escalator, and I thought, oh, it will just swallow my clothes and I will be naked. All my desert goods will be out. So it'll be like covered on my breast up. I thought that is the fear I had. I thought the elevator will swallow it, the escalator will do crazy too. All of this thing was a fear because I didn't know how to use machines, all of this machine, everything. I felt by the end of the day, I was so stimulated. I felt the computer that was overused, that was crashing. My brain took so much information in just watching and living a normal day for you. I felt it, I didn't even know how to open up a jars. I go, I'm trying, and somebody will say, put a spoon, put a knife, and just go, oh, I said, well, there's a little trick. And here I am, like, just, it's a little thing, how to make the microwave. Yeah, you can't put an aluminum thing or all of a sudden microwave going. I'm like, what am I doing? It is such a silly things or thing, but if you were watching me and you see me, I'm doing crazy, I said, let me help you. There is a kind way to show people, like, without belittling. right?
Mm.
Always wait on them. People are very smart because they have lived life and survived in environment that is much worse than this one. So they know how to survive. So don't belittle them, don't disrespect them. Just give them the chance and offer them help and tell them, I'm here, offer them for tea. Sometimes people can feel shy as if they bother you. Just say, I'm happy to help you. They will remember all of those things that you are offering them. They will.
Yes, they
Yeah.
will. And, I think that it's really, that is at the heart and the core of your memoir, which is absolutely beautiful. And it is so full of so many things, but exactly what you said, which is that we are all human at our core. And what you showed us is that your life may have been very different than mine as a child, but you loved your grandmother and you had experiences that were difficult and beautiful. And you faced challenges and you moved to another country and learned other languages and survived. Because you had other people in your life and connected to them.
I had people holding my hand all the time. I am so grateful everything that everyone have done for me to make me the person I am. No one makes it alone. And I'm saying this in literally no one makes it alone. Like no matter what person says, if if everything that took place in my life had not happened, I would not have been the person I am today. I remember and I was always a fast learner, I must add. You know how Ottawa River freezes. I'm gonna pull some Canadian thing on you. How Ottawa River freezes, and my husband and I, this was in our first, and my husband and I first met early on. I come to Canada in 92, and by 94 we met. And so he was taking me to the river to skate. You go skiing, right?
Skating.
It's skiing, right? You can ski on a river. Not skiing,
you
skating.
Can skate, yes.
Yeah, I often have to think because, here there's no, that's been my Canadian experience. So I was we were trying to, he said, let's go skating. And I said, okay. So he took me with a bunch of his guy friend, and I'm there. And I said, we put on the shoe, the skate shoes. And I said, I looked around, none of them are moving. I said, I am thinking you guys were going to help me, and none of them were moving, right? And being me, Shugri, this is what I did. So I looked around, I sized the environment, and I just start getting up and, falling a little bit, skidding or whatever you go, whatever you do, right? Just don't lose your teeth, Shukri. These are permanent, you don't want to wear dentures too early. So dentures too early. So I started, and before you know it, I was skating down the river and holding on. Sometimes I get lost and I just hug somebody, and these Canadian people will just push me along, and I will just smile and I will come toward them, and I can see I have lost control. But because I let go, I didn't think, oh, they're going to judge me, they're going to help me. I just grab. That's who I am. Really just always like, unless you show me your bad side, I'm always open for you. And you say, stay away from me. So I remember smiling and running toward this man. I still see him wearing this winter jacket that was one of the one that gets buttoned up and kind of like, as if you like the bottom is kind of squished, So he's like wearing this, and it was like purple and blue and green. I think it images. So I went him, and he was bending around, and I just grabbed all his body, and he got me up, hold my hand, I remember, and he just let me skate. He just let me go like that, and then someone else pushed me, and then so I end up way down in the river, away from my husband and his friend, while they still, and they had skated in the past. But I always, when it comes to this kind of things, I always catch on fast, because I learned how to ski. I often say I'm and that skiing desert woman, even in Tahoe in California, I still ski. So I felt like, because I was so open to people, I've learned the Canadian by then. I was speaking English. I was just approaching, with such a big smile. They didn't mind pushing. And when it was time to go back, someone pushed me back to all this village of people, Lisa, pushed me back to my destination.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
I have such a fun. And then I come to my husband and his friend. They stayed around. I think because my husband being shy, there was this thing they didn't want to look awkward or get embarrassed, but not this Somali crazy woman. I was like, hello, just big hug and just push me along, just so to this day, now I've learned how to roller ski, and learn a bike. And learning how to ride a bike was the hardest.
Was it? Yes.
Yeah. Teenagers taught me in California, and I kept ending up in the bushes. And my husband said, "You are a 30-year-old woman who's willing to lose her front teeth," he said to me, told him. I said, well, they are still my real teeth, okay? I'm like, he said, you're the only 30-year-old you're willing. I said, well, there's always dentures. I still.
That's right. Oh, yeah. That is such a beautiful metaphor for who you are and the way you skate through life. I love it.
It's just, I want to go back to, I've been missing Ottawa. I've been going to Edmonton for my best friend, and I was recently there. Excuse me. I was recently there to bury my brother in Edmonton.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's been he's in this story, Guled, and I can see migraine forming the side of me as I talk. But I have my brother and I. Often I find myself having a conversation as he passed away, a conversation I couldn't have had with him when he was succumbing to the peak of his addiction and mental illness. And Lisa, before I was still filled with pain and blame, no matter how much, and still blaming myself, no matter how much I did for him. But I am, Lisa, it's funny, this is the first time I'm saying, perhaps I'm feeling that I've done a really lot of things with him. I still would have hoped, I would have loved outcome to have been different, but it shows the other token, right? I made it, he didn't. There is a price to trauma.
Yes, there certainly is.
There's a price. I love him so much, and he left a novel behind. He was such a Canadian, and this novel, you can see his Canadianness, and it's funny. I think it is the fabric of who we are. He too left in Canada, and he was talking about like when he was. It's written in a novel, but I can see I'm his sister, so I can see the thread of all his life. And he too, Canada took him as a bewildered refugee, but we are home today is Canada. Where I grew up, Somalia and I obviously closer to each other, right? I feel like if I die, I feel like it's because I couldn't hold the longing so much anymore that I will end up going to Somalia, and maybe perhaps sometimes Somalis say, and I hope this is not my destiny, death can call us, right? Death can call. And it's not that death is calling me. What's really calling me is to have closure, right? This is the reason why people seek closure. I really want to move on. But I can't have closure unless I sift my fingers through the sand, the red desert of Somalia, and say, and echo, let my ancestors hear my voice as I bellow to them one more last time. Let me feel the walls of Mogadishu, the very walls that was, shattered with bullets. and say, I am here to have closure with you. Let me walk into the paved streets of Mogadishu. Let me watch one more time. Let me have closure with Mogadishu. And I am really want to make a documentary where I go back home one day and have that closure. I'm okay, Lisa. I'm okay because I've healed and I told my story.
Yes.
There is a catharticness. If there is a word, if I can play with the word cathartic, I say, can you say catharticness? I'm trying to create a new word. My Somali side is coming out to bend the words, right? That's what and so it was really cathartic to tell all my stories and that of my sibling. I stayed on the phone, interview all kind of people. Even if my memory was solid, I did not want to make a mistake of the Somali history. So I said, okay, this is what I know to be true, but is that true for our culture, or is it just my childhood imagination? Because I want this book to be used in schools. So that is why I become like an archaeologist excavating a forgotten world,
Yes. And a world as you say, that you don't have access to right now, that has been at war for so long.
Yeah, you are so right. It's in the world you don't have access. And I can tell you, the Somali nomadic world that I grew up is no more. I can tell you that because that it's been denatured not only by drought, but I think the people are not the same. They don't behave the same. Although like the Somali grandma that I grew up used to wear a traditional coat. I heard now people wear parka, and it's not. We as Wahhabis, some infiltrated Somalis are more. They took in that view. So perhaps now that the Saudi Arabia is this is a fair thing to talk about now, that the Saudi Arabia actually is taking on more soft tone of understanding a woman's right. Perhaps that can spill into, right, or trickle down to our Somalis and how they practice, because truly the religion Sufism, I like the way it was, and I think that is what we need in not this very harsh life of strictness is very hard, and also perhaps that can also rein in back the extreme view of those guys, Al-Shabaab. You see, so I'm really hopeful, and mind you, I often tell people it is really not easy to be a Somali woman, to be all covered up and trying to get a job in the Canadian system. We all know that it is not easy. Somali women have to deal with a lot, misogynistic culture, people who are weaponizing the religion. And on top of that, when she looks for a job just to survive, maybe somebody who wants to hire say, I don't know, you're all covered up and I don't know you, but I can tell people, have compassion. And honestly, in Canada, I'm so proud. I see so many women wearing their hijab, working, and it swells my heart, because really Canadians, even before America, were doing some amazing thing with the acceptance of other cultures. And that is why Canada is what it is. That is the beauty of Canadian. And I hope as we usher into a different era, perhaps an era of great misunderstanding and discontent of those who are different from us, we can keep that in mind, that really knowing we need each other. Honestly, I want people really to know that we cannot have a tribalism in this time. We need to support each other and to listen. And please, if someone holds a different opinion from you, be kind to them, listen them, and perhaps understand where they're coming from. So maybe you can be that change for them, but not when you're arrogant and when you're like, let me show you how it is. No one is gonna listen to you. No.
Oh, that is just, I love that so much, Shugri. It's exactly the purpose of why I have these conversations with authors. It's what I believe in terms of the books that we read, in terms of learning about one another so that we can understand one another and accept one another and not judge one another. And these are crazy times, but it's a time to remember our shared humanity.
This is the reason why I often feel like electronics really, I tell my son, oh, I don't know why you were looking down. A beautiful girl passed by. You could have been your wife or someone who made it. Too bad.
Too bad.
You
You
didn't
missed
notice.
her.
She just sprint by and
Yes.
she was beautiful and dazzling. You missed it, you know. so like, so
That's
often
right.
I feel like hopefully the world don't pass us by. So live
Yes.
life, put that phone down, and perhaps, you know, hike and talk to nature, listen to the birds and the owls call the night, and just
Yes.
live life. Yeah.
That's right. And read books and talk to people who are.
Oh, read books. And honestly, this book is I tell people, if you are an audio person, just listen and tell me what, just to give it literally maybe one or two paragraph. If it doesn't take you, you can put it down. And if you are a reader, either read the prologue or just the
Yes.
first chapter. Each book starts with Somali proverb,
Yes.
and the audio version of it, a beautiful, amazing Kenyan accent is reading. And
Beautiful.
but I read all of the Somali proverb, and if there was a song to say, I come in and sing, you know. There is a song we sing for Han, which, as you know, is the vessel we keep milk, and we kind of when we are condensing the milk to yogurt, we sing to Han, and we are telling the Han, you know, in this thing I'm about to say, we say to the Han in Somali, Hantaydi hede mafiobido kuarke mafurkalaga hajuke namalagu fandalaiste. So this is telling the Han, has someone tamper with you? Has someone licked you and ruined you? And because we don't want the milk you want to condense it to make to yogurt to be tempered, right? Even the nomads knew about bacteria, right? If you licked it and put it in your tongue and come back, we all knew what was going to happen.
They knew.
That's why they curate deal those fossils that we got put milk. So I find every time in when there was a song to come in or a longer Somali words to say, such as a Somali proverbs, I come in. And so it's a beautiful marriage between this woman and I that really produce one of a kind of audio version.
Well, Shugri, thank you. Thank you for your book, for your story, for taking us into Somalia and along your life's journey. And thank you for all the stories you shared here today. It's a real joy to speak with you and to read your words.
Yeah.
And next time you are in Ottawa, we might not go skating together, but let's have tea.
Oh, Lisa, you beat me to it, right? You just beat me in my fellow Canadian out. Yes, I will love to have you at tea, and I will contact you. What we can do is, perhaps if I remember, I'll try to remember, and we can share, save each other's email, and then maybe send it quick each other to each other. So thank you so much. I really enjoy this, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much. And I wanted to say hi to my fellow Canadian, and I wanted to say goodbye to them. But you know, I can't wait to visit Canada. Canada is home. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's home. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode on YouTube or listening via your favorite podcast app. For more information on our guest author, you will find all of their links in the show notes. Please join the conversation by leaving a comment or reaching out directly. We really do love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, do share the love by leaving a review or sharing on social media. This episode is brought to you by Wayfarers Book Club, where we set out on a guided journey each month, all from your favorite reading chair at home. Go to intralingo.com for more information.